All right, let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you. Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
I'm sitting on a microphone.
I know it's a tough session to follow with all that inspirational leadership. But what we wanted to put together, and sorry, maybe just to introduce myself, I'm Swapnil Bhatnagar, partner with the firm. I work very closely with my colleagues Ruth and Dave as part of our research practice to kind of come to the data, the quantitative data that we have behind some of these trends. What we thought is we'll probably do a short presentation. It'll be short with some key data points that we've seen as part of our research, and then we will kind of speak a little bit more on what we think is going to happen in the future and how organizations can leverage these tech spends and how they can optimize and drive value from them. So nothing too surprising here, but really all of our research till the end of last year was extremely positive. There was a good transition happening. Enterprises were looking to spend more towards digital investments. They were getting out of that cost optimization only mode that they've been in the last couple of years. But then, since the beginning of this year, I think a lot of those forecasts have become a little jittery. There is, of course, a lot of the US policy shifts have made the economy a little tentative with a bit of uncertainty ahead. How this will impact technology spends is what we also want to talk about a little bit more. But optimization, cost optimization will again become important. I know, that's something that's likely to happen, at least in the short to middle term, which is probably in the next couple of quarters. But what we actually wanted to focus on also was that during the same period, we conducted some more research, which showed up some interesting things. Most enterprises are not looking at technology as a short-term play. If you take a 5-year view, most organizations are very clear that they will need to continue to spend on digital technologies, and and their technology budgets will have a significant portion coming from or targeted towards digital spending. As you can see in some of these charts, nearly 65% of organizations feel that they will have more than 25% of their technology budget focused on digital spending. And this is still the year that we are going through despite all the challenges and the jitters that we've seen. If we take a 5-year view, however, things are very, very interesting. A lot of the organizations, more than twice of what we saw in this last study, they are going to have more than 50% of their technology spend going towards digital initiatives. What this means is that even if there is a little bit of a pushback that you see in the next couple of quarters, I think the drive towards value, how digital spends are going to impact value for the organizations, those are the messages that still need to be driven, both internally by enterprise technology leaders to their boards, to their CFOs, CEOs, all of that, and from the providers as well. What we saw was two main areas where there's a lot of tech spend, and we'll discuss both of these areas in detail. But the first one, not surprising at all, AI is as part of any conference that you go to nowadays. The second one, enterprise applications, the Salesforces, the ServiceNows, all of that, that is another area where we are seeing a lot of investment coming in. Just looking at AI, I think the spending priorities that we took across sectors, AI is coming out as clearly the top spending priority. What's interesting is that when we were doing the study last year or the year before this, a lot of this spend was more focused towards POCs, use cases, initial use cases. What we're actually seeing now is there are production grade implementations for AI projects across multiple industries, which is actually driving this spend away from POCs, but actually towards actually creating value for the organization. Of course, as that happens, there is a bit of a redistribution of technology budgets that we see. AI ML budgets have grown significantly higher. Some of the more traditional areas, in terms of percentages, might seem to decline a little. Having said that, the importance of cybersecurity or analytics still continues to be there. Yeah. Sorry, I'm rushing through it a little bit, but this is more towards the enterprise applications part of it. We also look at, sorry, was that a question? Yeah, sorry. So enterprise applications contribute, 36% of the spending by Tower. This has come out in a study, the IT spending and staffing benchmark study that we've been doing for the last, 35 years now? Yeah. So enterprise applications are key. They are kind of the fundamental backbone of an organization, but we expect this to actually increase even further, because that's an interesting point coming up, that AI spend is now, or a part of it is getting merged with the enterprise applications as well. Organizations find that their change management for AI is really the most critical and difficult thing to do. And to reduce that, what they're focusing on or they're looking at is enterprise systems that their organizations, the people in their organizations are already familiar with. The SAPs, the Salesforces, the Microsofts. They're all coming out with generative AI modules for different features, functionalities. And that's where we're seeing that a lot of organizations are looking to get their initial Gen AI movement, or at least the broad generative AI movement, using the enterprise applications that they're currently working with. So these were some of the data points that we have, and would love to talk a little bit more about this with Ruth and Dave. You guys want to introduce yourself first, and then?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Dave Wagner, Senior Research Director here at Avasant. Is this working okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I head up computer economics spending side of things, some of the data that Swapnil showed you, some other IT spend, IT strategy, roadmap, that kind of thing. And Ruth, do you want to?
I'm Ruth Steinberg. I am a principal consultant, and I'm responsible for our enterprise applications practice, which is kind of why I'm sitting up here. That's a horizontal across all industries.
Yeah, and so I'm going to do a kind of a dual role here. I'm basically the moderator, but anybody who's in this room that knows me knows that I can't resist to throw in my opinions here or there. So I'll probably be jumping in here or there, but I'm going to start with questions. And Ruth, I'm going to start with you because you just talked about that horizontal footprint that you really have here. I think one of Avasant's great strengths really is how we have that consulting side and the research side, and we have that ability to really see the practical lens of all of that research. As someone who's got a foothold on both of those places, what are the areas you're seeing that are the biggest, either the pain points or the points of investment that we can't just ignore, even though Swapnil was talking about maybe we do have to do a little spend optimization? There's some things that we really can't just wait on.
So a lot of what I'm seeing now is organizations leveraging the AI capabilities in these enterprise apps because they can't convince their senior executives to really launch serious AI capabilities. And so what we found is that I'm getting a 4-minute time on us, I think. Is that it?
Oh, geez.
Okay, so just pointing that out. Yeah. So I'll talk fast. So we do find that organizations are spending their time and their energy on upgrading and the like. There's things going on in the industry. SAP's ending service for certain of their products, so there's an external demand for upgrades. But I think organizations are really spending their time doing some of this work because they can't necessarily convince their senior executives that AI is the way to go and how to create these optimizations.
Yeah, do you see that changing, say, in the next couple of years?
I think there's going to be a curve, right? I think right now people are leveraging those AI capabilities in these enterprise apps because they can't get the funding. But I think as their deploying and as they're stabilizing their applications, they're going to be taking advantage of those, and then they can use those as the proofs of concept in order to move this along. Now, a lot of the companies that I see are in regulated industries or government or some of the other maybe laggard type industries as opposed to finance or high tech or any of those. So I think that's the nature of the organizations that I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis.
I agree with you, yeah.
So the title here, we should feel, we talked a little bit about the spending trends, but one of the things we really haven't talked about is value or optimization. Optimization specifically to me is a weird word or an interesting word because it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It can mean just meeting your budget needs. It can mean resiliency, agility. There's a lot of different ways you can optimize your technology. When you're talking about optimization, what are you thinking of, and what kind of tools do you think CIOs really need to be using to make sure they're getting the most out of that?
This is a very interesting conversation because we were just having this in the prior meeting that I was in, and a lot of CIOs are seeing the desire to start moving toward tools and techniques and capabilities that will create efficiencies and create greater effectiveness of their organizations. But again, they're coming up against barriers, either senior execs that haven't bought into it, or things as simple as their procurement departments not knowing how to buy AI-enabled services. So when the procurement department is counting, how many heads and how many costs per head you have, and that's the only method they use to determine optimization of cost, when you inject an AI bot into that, you disrupt the entire model, and all of a sudden your procurement departments can't function, right? Your suppliers, your vendors are trying to find different ways to optimize, and you're getting blockages in your own organizations.
Swapnil would be, this is an IT or an Avasant research panel, so it would behoove us to talk about how can the folks out there optimize their lives a little bit with a little bit of Avasant research.
Sure. Okay. So I think the first thing that, again, building the business case, I think that is the first big challenge that most new initiatives face, right? And that's where just getting benchmarks that we have, across different spends and the kind of value that's coming in. Because if the conversation continues to be around cost optimization, then that is a bit of a challenge. The business case has to be driven by value. We have benchmarks that, of course, kind of align with what kind of spends have led to what kind of value. There's a lot of work, of course, that we do with end customers, end users as well, which help build that business case out. So I think the benchmarking exercise, of course, is a big thing that CIOs can leverage from our side, but also a lot of these trends of the future as well, right? Because you have to plan for the future, and that's where just getting a sense of what's going on, what are some of the industry trends, do they vary by different industries? In some of the sessions that we saw earlier in the day, I think there was a lot of focus on cross-industry pollination of ideas and innovation. And that's somewhere, a lot of case study work that we do with enterprises goes a long way in creating those cross-industry pollination ideas and themes that can then be used by CIOs, CFOs of the end user organizations as well.
Great. I wanted to ask you a couple more questions, but I know we're out of time, and we really need to see Korea's action figure, so that's really exciting. So I'll just wrap it there. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Swapnil. Thank you, everybody in the room, for listening to us and for being here at this wonderful event. I hope you have a great time the next couple days.
Thank you, everybody.